Good morning. So, Rachel Maddow has admitted in a court of law that she is fake news. That's hilarious. As if that's news to anybody sane. But literally, this is her admitting that nobody sane thinks she's real news. Isn't that hysterical? So, she was sued by an ONN news reporter because she said the guy was literally, actually paid Russian propaganda. And she beat this on an anti slap measure, so she got the case thrown out. And the way she did this is kind of interesting because this news reporter who sued her did once work for Sputnik News, which is a Russian based news organization. However, that is not the defense she used at all. She used literally the same defense that Alex Jones has beat a suit once or twice before. She said, literally, no reasonable person would believe what I said about this news reporter from ONN is or OAN, sorry, is true. One American News Network. My bad. Got the acronym wrong. She said no one would believe what I said about this OAN news reporter is true. This was clearly a hyperbolic statement used for the purposes of a joke. She basically said, you can't sue me. I'm a parodic comedy entertainer, like a Jon Stewart or a Stephen Colbert or some shit. Yeah, I'm not real news. I do things for entertainment purposes. So nobody reasonable would believe me. Is how she beat this. She beat a guy who's suing her for saying something which is factually untrue, which is a lie. So she literally defamed this person, but she took the defense successfully. I am not a legitimate news presenter. I am an entertainer, and nobody rational believes what I say is accurate. Now, when Alex Jones used this kind of defense, it was more along the lines of I have an entertainment, conspiracy theory radio show on the internet. Nobody rational believes me when I say that like reptilian interdimensional psychic vampires run the government. I play a character on the internet, which is true, even though Alex Jones frequently breaks real news stories about real things concerning what the government really does. He beats some suits by saying, look, I say crazy shit about psychic vampires. Nobody reasonable believes I am actually the news. But again, he works for prisonplanet.com. And even though he frequently says things that are true, he also says things that are at the very least completely unverifiable and should be taken with a kind of a dramatic flair. Again, psychic vampires. But Rachel Maddow also probably occasionally presents something that is true. But she's also I think she works for MSNBC. I haven't watched cable news in a million years and haven't even paid attention to the likes of complete frauds like Rachel Maddow in years. I'm pretty sure she works for MSNBC, but MSNBC is supposedly a legitimate news organization, which of course it is not. Now, I want to take the back half of this video to explain to you guys something important. And this is not a centrist take. This is a fact of the news medium that people like Rachel Maddow inhabit. If you get your news from a for-profit multimedia conglomerate cable news channel, you're stupid. That includes Fox. That includes OANN. Or OAN. I don't know why I can't say that correctly. These are people who are beholden to investors, to corporate sponsors, and to the whims of billionaire editors. This is why CNN is fake news. This is why MSNBC is fake news. And this is why Fox is fake news, if you think that just because a guy like Tucker Carlson is the only man who will even discuss with a straight face the concept of white genocide and demographic replacement in both Europe and in America, if you think that he's trustworthy because he has the balls to go there occasionally, you're stupid. The unfortunate fact of news, media, and politics in America is that it is your responsibility to get as close to the truth as you can as possible. And that is factually impossible to do. It is impossible to reach anything even approaching the truth by blindly trusting a single organization or source. And this goes beyond just cable news. If you get your news from just a single pundit or two, you never read articles, you never look up sources, you never actually watch video taken of events and actually make sure that that video hasn't been dishonestly edited. If you say only pay attention to what Project Veritas is talking about, and they're usually so hyper focused on single subjects, oftentimes just exposing other news organizations, you're not getting like news from Project Veritas, even if what they're telling you is always the truth. Their scope is so myopic and small and focused. That's not news. If you trust pundits who do nothing but read propaganda from other sources and then comment on it flippantly, like Philip DeFranco, Shilip DeFrado, if you trust Tim Pool especially, holy shit. You want to talk about something you should be ashamed of watching? I got sick of Tim Pool's bullshit 4.5 years ago. Actually, over 5 years ago now. During the 2016 presidential election, I was tired of his bullshit. Tim Pool is a leftist who realizes that the best way to make money is, rather than do what he used to do, which is actually break down propaganda shit from Washington Post or the New York Times or CNN or Mediaite or fucking the Associated Press or Reuters or some shit, some other untrustworthy, archaic, fraudulent fucking news source, and then mumble about it and say, that's complicated. He has a fucking like H3H3 style mumblefuck podcast where he waffles his way around shit and never takes any kind of stand. And again, gets almost all his shit either from guests who are randomly talking about shit, pretending to be Joe Rogan doing like human interest shit instead of talking about news, or he's doing the same shit he used to be, only with retarded guests like himself, mumbling about it like it means anything. I'm not news either, by the way. I am also a pundit, only I don't pretend to be a source of information for you. I am trying to be your moral guide, and I'm trying to teach you how to think. I'm not trying to tell you what to think. Even though I do sometimes, I don't pretend like I'm anybody. But people trust a fucking goddamn Chicago/Seattle fucking liberal yahoo like Tim Pool, like he's somehow better than a Rachel Maddow, or better than a Tucker Carlson, or better than a Trevor Noah or a Stephen Colbert, when he is exactly the same thing. Okay? And he's only gotten worse since I given up on him. And you could almost take as a barometer the more popular a milquetoast, fence-sitting, moral coward pundit like Tim Pool is, the more people watch them and trust them, the less trustworthy they are. Because their popularity has come from them somehow, literally, balancing on a fence, balancing on a pivot, shifting left and right, always taking the pulse of their audience, making sure that they're always telling you what you want to hear. And I don't know about any of you guys, but the news, the real news of the day, what's going on with Afghanistan or the economy or gas prices or geopolitics or the constant migrant and refugee and fucking illegal alien crisis going on across the entire Western world. I don't know if any of the facts of what all that is as it's actually happening is what I want to hear. It's kind of all bad fucking news. And of course, the way that I have any small popularity that I do have is because when I'm telling you what you want to hear about it is not me sifting through sources and putting up a bunch of shit on the screen. It's me saying that I feel about it probably much like you do, which is that I am fucking pissed off. But when I do that, I'm not news. I'm an entertainer. And I am very, very frequently being a hyperbolic asshole and screaming about how people are subhuman scum. But if anybody were to sue me for calling them subhuman scum, I would say, am I literally saying that this person is an amalgamation of paramecium and pond scum and amoebas that is only pretending to be human? He's had you all fooled? Or am I saying that this guy is fucking worthless, is a moral degenerate and a monster, and should not be trusted, should be maligned, should be hated? You should resent that people like this exist and are successful. So yeah, Tim Pool, you're subhuman scum. But you know what I'm saying. And no reasonable person would consider me news. However, there are people out there with a news desk on a news cable show with little papers in front of them who are pretending to tell you the news. And when asked to put their money where their mouth is, they say, I am not news. I am doing exactly what Darren does on his iPad in his in his bedroom. That's the world we live in right now. If you want to know the truth, the best thing you can do, actually, is become a member of a community that is frequently sharing news stories, who are looking things up from a very big myriad of sources, that is very frequently actually busting out data and video of things. And if you're not consuming data and video, you are not consuming news. And if you are only consuming news from a single source, you're not consuming news. I read, to the detriment of my mental health, lots of left-wing news sources. Because I like to take the pulse of the fucking evil demonic creatures that are ruining the world. I like to know what they're thinking. I also see a lot of shit that I just malign as fucking pathetic boomerism. And if I sound somehow like I'm more trustworthy because I'm not really a Republican or not really a Democrat and I'm not really a liberal and I'm not really conservative, it's not because I don't have identifiably somewhat right-wing clear views. It's that I don't think that any sort of stalwart of Republican politics or Republican news is trustworthy, and I think most of them lie nearly as frequently as Democrats do. And of course, Democrats lie literally 100% of the time without exception. So it's difficult to pretend like I have an accurate view of reality. I just know that relative to the rest of you, my view of reality is more accurate. And the one thing that really makes like a legitimate skeptic, even though that's another word that has been ruined and abused by disingenuous fucking hacks, is a lack of trust. It's not an operative, insistent, incorrigible disbelief. It is a lack of trust. If you trust any one single source, you are a fool. It takes a painful amount of time, a stupid amount of time that most people don't have the patience for and don't legitimately have the time for. And that is the sad fact, is that you're forced through just lack of resources, time resources, to trust pundits like me or Tim Pool or fucking Tucker Carlson or something. This is a mistake. So the only real protection you have against people like me, or Alex Jones, or Rachel Maddow, or anybody else, is a lack of trust. You should not trust anybody, especially today. There is nobody truly trustworthy. You must create a worldview out of time and effort that nobody's really going to do, and that's why normies exist. That's why the ideologically possessed, or whatever the fuck Jordan Peterson calls them, these people, why they exist is because they trust people who abuse and take advantage of their trust consistently and constantly and without fail. You can only trust these people to lie to you. So think about that a little bit today.